calm, cool, and collected. She's calm, cool, and collected. She's calm, cool, and collected. She's calm, cool, and collected. Happy Sunday. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. So I'm gonna be real. I've been tested like no other the past 2 days, all day yesterday, and even this morning. Up until the point that I hit record or live or whatever, up until the point that I hit that button to go live, I have been tested non-stop. But guess what? The devil is a liar. I'm not going to let nothing stop me from getting this message out, even if I'm currently going through some stuff right now. But today we're going to be talking about the problem with letting roles define you. And if you can't hear me, please let me know in the chat. But if you can hear me, feel free to say hi. But anyways, today we're going to talk about why you shouldn't let whatever roles you play define who you are. And you might be wondering, what do I mean by roles? We all have various roles that we play within our lives. Whether you're a mother or a father, a wife or a husband, a teacher, a doctor, a musician. We all have different roles that we play. And if you see me looking down, I'm looking down at my notes. And here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with taking pride in whatever role you want, whatever role you take pride in. If you take pride in being a mother, if you take pride in being a wife, if you take pride in being a doctor and having your doctorate degree, if you take pride in being an artist, being a musician, there's nothing wrong with that. However, what is wrong is when you allow those roles, those titles, to define who you are and to make or break your self-worth. When your identity is rooted in roles, you are bound to have an identity crisis. Because here's the thing, those roles can change, or you could lose the role altogether. For example, due to unforeseen circumstances. For example, let's say you're a proud wife and your identity revolves around that, being a proud wife, being a stay-at-home mom, or whatever the case, or being a stay-at-home wife. What if you end up divorced? What if one day your husband wakes up and decides, I don't want to be with you no more? Or you find out he's been having an affair and you don't want to be with him anymore? Or even worse, what if you become a widow and he dies? Then you being a proud wife, that changes. That role changes. You being a wife, period, changes if, like I said, y'all end up divorced or he ends up passing away. So then it's like, who are you now? Now that you're no longer a proud wife and your life revolved around that, who are you now? And I'm using an example because I've been seeing that a lot lately. Again, I'm not here to shame anybody. There's nothing wrong with being a proud wife, proud mom, whatever. But I feel like you have to be careful not to let those roles define you, because guess what? You were your own person before you had kids, before you got married. You were still you. You were still your own person. And I think it's important never to lose that and to make sure that your identity doesn't come from things outside of yourself. Because, like I said, those roles can change. You could end up divorced or you could end up a widow. And I've seen lately, I don't even want to say lately, but I've noticed like when I go on a lot of different women's like profile pages or whatever, they'll have in their bio proud wife, stay at home mom, this and that. And don't get me wrong, if that's what you make content surrounding, I can understand. Like, I'm not judging you for putting that in your bio. However, at the same time, you can tell that these women revolve their lives around that. They revolve their lives around their husband and their kids. But a lot of times they neglect themselves. And I've seen the flip side of it where women who are divorced now and maybe their husband cheated or whatever the case, and they're no longer married. And not only are they no longer married, they don't even know how to provide for themselves because guess what? Their husband was the breadwinner. They're not even just the breadwinner because it's not wrong with your spouse making more money than you, but they didn't make their own money at all. Their husband took care of everything. They didn't have their own job. They didn't have their own money. Their husband's money was their money. But now that they're no longer with the husband, they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know maybe they've been out of the workforce for a really long time and they don't really have any skills. And it might be hard for them to find a decent job. So now they're going through an identity crisis. You revolved your whole life around things outside of you and didn't pour into yourself. And now you're having an identity crisis. Why? Because those roles changed. Even being a proud mom, here's the thing. If you're a mom, 9 times out of 10, you're always going to be a mom. Like if things happen in the natural order, you're going to pass before your kids. However, let's say that's not the case. God forbid, you end up losing your child way before their time. Yeah, you can have another child, but at that point, if especially if that was your only child, you're no longer a mother. You could always be a mother again if you decide to have another child. But if your life revolved around your child, and I'm not saying you shouldn't prioritize your child. Absolutely. Whether you're a mother or father, you should prioritize your children when they're young, when they become adults, they go off and do their own thing. They don't really need you as much. But when they're under your roof and under your tutelage, yes, you should prioritize your children. However, you shouldn't do it to the extent where you completely lose yourself and neglect yourself because everything is about this child. Every single breathing, every single breath, every single second, my life has to be about this child. And even though a part of me commends that, I don't think it's healthy. At the same time, I don't think that's healthy because here's the thing. Your child is not going to be a child forever. One day, your child is going to be a grown ass human. And they're going to move out and start making their own money and eventually have a family of their own to where they don't really need you as much. They're still going to love you and have a relationship with you if you are a good parent, because that's another thing. Some adult kids be going no contact with their parents because they didn't have good parents. But let's say you're a good parent. Even when your child becomes an adult, hopefully they're still going to make time for you. Like you'll still see them, but you're not going to see them as much because they don't live with you. They have their own life. They have their own family. So you're not going to see them as much. They don't need you as much. So if your identity revolved around being a mom, I'm a proud mom. Your whole identity revolved around that. What happens when your kids grow up and move out and have a family of their own? They might even move to a different state. Then you're going through an identity crisis because, like, for the last 18 years, I've completely revolved my life around my child, and now my child don't really need me anymore. So it's like, what am I going to do with myself now? So that's why, even though, like I said, it's nothing wrong with taking pride in whatever role you want to take pride in. But you have to be careful not to allow any role to define you. Even if, and I want to be careful because, like I said, I'm not judging if you're proud. Like, let's say you're a doctor and you want people to call you Dr. So and so. I respect that. I'm not knocking that. And if I had a doctor's degree, and I was a doctor, I would be proud too. I would be letting people know, like, yeah, something, something, I'm a doctor. Like, I would just slide that in conversations. I'm not gonna lie. But at the same time, here's the thing. Let's say you never lose your well, I don't think you could ever lose your degree, but I think it's possible for you to lose your doctor license or something. I don't know. But let's say that never happens to you and you always are a doctor for the rest of your life. That's who you are, and that role never changes. That still doesn't define you. That still doesn't define you because, again, you were still you prior to you having that degree, prior to you being a doctor. You were still you. You were still your own person. The only difference is you got a higher education, and now you have like a really good career, I guess you could say. But even with that, unless you run your own practice, unless you have your own practice, you could get laid off even as a doctor. Even if you have a high position in a company, let's say you're a CEO, you could still end up getting fired. You could still end up getting laid off. So it's like whether you're a doctor or a CEO or whatever, a manager at a company or whatever the case, you got to be careful not to let those roles define you, because again, those roles can change. Those roles can be taken away. Even if those roles and titles can't be taken away, guess what? What you do for a living, what you do as your career, that does not speak to who you are as a person. And I guess some people could argue to an extent it does, because maybe you became a doctor because you really want to help people heal. You really want people to be healthy. I could see that. But in most cases, let's be real, most people who have jobs or careers, in most cases, it's not because, oh, I just love this career. I'm just passionate about it. It brings me joy. It brings me fulfillment. A lot of times, I'm not going to say all the time, because there are some people who do love their job and love their career. However, in most cases, niggas just trying to make money. People just trying to make money and be able to take care of themselves. And like some people, they want to live lavish and they like nice things. So that's why they might take on a certain career. But that doesn't speak to who you are as a person. If you take away the title of you being a doctor, you being a mom, you being a wife, you being a husband, you being a CEO, whatever title or role you have, who are you? If you're not able to answer that, you're depending too much on these roles to define you. And you don't really know who you are. If you can't answer that, it's because you don't really know who you are. And your identity it revolves around the roles that you play. And that's not healthy, in my opinion. Mm, And here's the thing, I know a lot of people that have master's degrees, doctor's degrees, bachelor's degrees. They got these high paying jobs, really good careers, great benefits. And guess what? You talk to them and ask them, what made you get into da 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 da? Like, a lot of times they'll tell you, honestly, I just wanted to make a lot of money. It was the smartest route to go. Like, I knew I want to live a certain lifestyle. So that's why I went to college for it. That's why I did it. And I'll be like, damn, like I was expecting you to be like, oh, I'm so passionate about this. And that's why I went to college for it and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times that don't be their answer. And mind you, these people be making a lot of money. So just because somebody makes a lot of money and they have a certain degree or a career or whatever, that doesn't, number one, it doesn't mean that they're fulfilled. It doesn't mean they're happy. But also, number two, that doesn't speak to who they are as a person. They just know how to play the game. The audio isn't clear. Can you guys hear me? Oh, the mic is muffled. Damn, can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me. Yes, I hear you. Okay. Oh man, I'm so sorry about that, guys. Hopefully, it hasn't been like that the whole time I've been talking because I have not been paying attention to the chat. But can you guys hear me clearly now? Let me know if you guys can hear me clearly now. Is the mic still muffled? Mm. Let me know if the mic is still muffled. I don't want to start ranting again and then somebody in the chat be like, we can't hear you, the mic is muffled. So if somebody can leave me a comment in the chat and let me know, is the mic clear or is it muffled? Mm, Nobody's responding, so I'm gonna just go ahead and keep talking, but I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat just in case you guys tell me that you can't hear me clearly. But yeah, and here's the thing. I know somebody who I don't know if it's muffled. I can hear you. Okay. Okay, good. As long as y'all can hear me, that's all that matters. But I know somebody personally who has a master's degree, was making like $150,000 a year, great career. And guess what? When the company got a new CEO, that person got laid off. And they've been without a job for months, despite them having a master's degree. Mind you, when they were working at this place, I asked them, what made you get into that? Like, do you like love what you do? Like, what made you get into that? And he said, honestly, I hate it. To be honest, I hate it. I just I just knew I needed to provide for my family. So that's why I went to school for that. And that's why I had the job that I had. But to be honest, I'm kind of happy they laid me off because I was trying to quit anyway. I was trying to get out of there anyway because it was so stressful. And this person, they did not allow their job or their career to define them. But that's why even though they didn't allow that to define them, which is a good thing, a lot of people do, even if they're not happy in that space. And that's the thing. So you might be asking, well, if I can't base my identity off the roles that I play, then what can I base my identity off of? In my humble opinion, and I'm not trying to be religious, but if you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, y'all know I'm a very spiritual person. You're in my humble opinion, me being a very spiritual person, and also me having my own experiences, your identity needs to be rooted in God. Rooted in God. Rooted in living by the fruits of the Spirit and always doing the right thing. Your identity should be rooted in that, who you are as a person, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. That's in my opinion, that is the only thing that your self-worth and identity should come from, is who you are as a person, how you treat people. If you try to do the right thing in every situation. Because here's the thing, you have plenty of people who have these roles, whether it's a wife, a husband, a mother, a father, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. And guess what? Some of these people who have those roles are not good people. They're not good people. They're not kind. Some of these people are actually evil. And somebody can be a mother or a wife and be an evil person, be a bad person. Somebody could be a father and a husband and still be a bad person, still be an evil person. Somebody could be a doctor and be an evil person. I was just listening to a story the other day about this doctor that was killing his patients on purpose. Like, and he eventually got caught. There's people who even think about this. Celebrities. It's a lot of extremely talented celebrities, whether it's actors, singers, rappers. You have so many talented people in the industry. And guess what? Some of those people are not good people. Some of those people are evil, despite them having this role and this title and being good at what they do. They're still not good people. So that's That's why your identity should not come from any role, even if it's something you're proud of. Your sense of self importance, your self worth should not come from that. It should come from God. And I'm saying this as somebody who I'm gonna be real. I was never, I was never the type of woman, not even woman, because even when I was a little girl, even as a little girl, I was never like, oh, I dream of being a mother and getting married. And I never imagined my wedding dress or having a big wedding. I genuinely didn't care about that. I wasn't one of those little girls that was like dreaming of getting married and having kids. But one thing that I did always dream of was being an inspirational figure, inspiring people through my music and being a motivational speaker and being an author. That's what my dream always was, to be this all around inspirational figure and to be famous off that, be this famous inspirational figure. Because I looked up to people like Maya Angelou, uh, Lauren Hill. Um, I'm drawing a blank right now, but women like that. And I was like, man, I want to be like them. Like, and my identity came from that. My identity was tied to whether or not I became successful at those things, whether or not I became a famous singer and I became a famous author and I became this big, well known motivational speaker. My identity, my self worth was tied to whether or not I became successful in those things, whether or not I accomplished those things. And it was so much to the point that when I didn't achieve certain things, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, by the time I'm 25, I'm gonna be da 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 da. By the time I'm 27, I'm gonna be da 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 da. I'm gonna be making this much money. I'm gonna have this many followers or subscribers on YouTube. By this age, I'm a da 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 da. And guess what? When none of those things happened, I felt like a failure. I felt like a failure. And I went through an identity crisis. I went through an identity crisis because my identity was tied to becoming successful in those things, in those roles that I wanted so badly to. I don't know if I would say roles, but titles. I wanted so badly to have these titles and not just be self-proclaimed. Because here's the thing, technically I am an author. I put out like 2 or 3 books, but they were all self-published. I never had a book deal. I never was on a bestseller list or any of that. But technically I am an author. I put out a few books. But in my mind, I'm like, I want to sell this many copies. I want to be New York Times bestseller, da da da. And when that didn't happen, even with my music, me thinking, oh, by the time I'm this age, I'll be da 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 da. Like I'll have this many followers on social media and I'll be doing shows and I'll be making this much money, when all those things that I hoped for didn't happen. I went through a really I went through a really huge identity crisis because I'm like, if I never become successful at these things, and these are things that I've dreamed of being since I was a little girl, if I never become successful and I never become anybody, I'm always just a nobody. Who am I? Who am I? Like, I'm not even, I feel like if I don't achieve these things, I'm not worthy. My self worth was tied to whether or not I achieved those things and became those things. And once I broke up with my ex, I was in a very abusive and toxic relationship. And once we broke up, that's when I really surrendered my life to God. That's when I literally said out loud, I'm like, look, Lord, whatever you want to do with me, I surrender. You can do whatever you want. And I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Like, because I was just tired. I was tired of doing me, doing things my way, trying to make things work on my own, trying to figure things out on my own, thinking I had all the answers, thinking I had it all figured out. I was tired. And I was like, look, Lord, I want you to guide me in every single area and aspect of my life. I want you to guide me. I'm done doing things my way because obviously my way ain't working. So once I did that and I really surrendered my life to God and I was praying every day, meditating every day, journaling every day, really seeking God, constantly reading scriptures, that's when I realized, Kyla, you don't need to be a famous singer or a famous YouTuber and make a certain amount of money and and even you don't because another thing that I did slowly start to fall into was becoming obsessed with marriage and becoming a wife. Even though I wasn't like that as a kid and all throughout my teens and even early 20s, once I became abstinent and I became more holy, I guess. I don't view myself that way now. But at the time I kind of felt like I was holier than now because I'm like, I'm abstinent. I'm not really drinking anymore. Like, so there was a point in time where I was kind of obsessed with becoming a wife and getting married. I was never obsessed with being a mom. Like, I'm gonna be real. Like, even though I love kids, I was like, if I have a kid, cool. If I don't, that's cool too. I don't really care. But the love aspect, being in love and married and being a wife, there was a little phase where I was kind of obsessive and I felt like my identity came from that. Like once I get married, once I have my husband, once I'm a wife, then everything is then I'll feel important. Then I'll feel worthy because somebody chose me. And now I'm a wife. I can show my hand to people like, oh, I'm married, I'm a wife. So I did have a little phase with that. But once I really got close to God, I started seeing myself the way God sees me. And then I realized, Kyla, whether you become famous or not, whether you ever become rich or start making a lot of money off your purpose and your passions and doing what you love, whether that happens or not, whether you ever get married or not, all the things that you used to feel like once I achieve these things or I have these things, then I'll be worthy. Then I'll feel important. Then I'll feel good about myself. Once I really got close to God and I started seeing myself the way God sees me, I realized I don't need none of that. I don't need none of it. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I still want to get to a point where I'm making a really good living off of this. Me making these YouTube videos, going live, me making music and just creating content that inspires and uplifts people, whether it's through music or through me talking. Yes, I still want to get to a point where I'm making a good living off that. However, if it never happens for me, I'm at peace with that because I know who I am and my worth does not come from that. My identity does not come from that. Let's say I never made a video to begin with. Let's say I never made these videos. Let's say I never made a song. I never put out any music. That doesn't change who I am today. I am loving. I am kind. I am understanding. I respect myself. I try to do the right thing and respect others. I'm funny. Um, optimistic, I'm lighthearted and playful. I'm so many things. So no role can define me. No role can make me feel better or worse about myself. I am who I am without any title, without any role. My money doesn't define me. My role, my title, my job, none of that defines me. Where I live, none of that defines me. Whether I'm married or not, whether I have kids or not, none of that defines me. And even if I do acquire some of those things, it still doesn't define me. And that's the mentality that you have to have, because I'm telling you right now, if your identity comes from things outside of you, even roles that you play, if your identity comes from that, it's only a matter of time before you go through an identity crisis, because you don't really know who you are. Because you think you're this role. You think I'm a mom. And yes, you are a mom, but that's not who you are. That's a role that you play, and that's an aspect of who you are, but it's not who you are. You are more than that. You are more than that. Before you had them kids, you were your own person, and you're still your own person. Because guess what? When them kids grow up, they're going to be like, see you, mom. See you, dad. We outside. They're going to live their life. Yes, they're going to still love you, but you're not going to be the apple of their eye anymore. Even if they love you to death, you're not going to be the apple of their eye like you were when they were a child and they actually needed you. And that's okay. And you got to be okay with that, and you got to make peace with that. That's why a lot of times you'll hear, and I'm gonna be real, a lot of times it's women. I don't really hear dads talk like this. I feel like the dads would be cool, like, all right, if you want to leave, like, see ya. Take care. If you need me, let me know. You can always come back. But all right, if you out, bye. Like, but moms, I feel like moms have a harder time letting go, at least from what I've observed, because I don't have any kids, so I don't want to like act like I have all the answers. But from what I've observed, it seems like moms have a hard time letting their kids go. Like, I've heard moms talk about like them being sad that their kids are growing up and moving out of the house or going away to college. It's like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, the house is gonna be quiet, da da da. And I'm like, but then on the flip side, I do come across moms that are like, I'm happy. Like now I love my baby, and I'm glad they're, growing up and doing their own thing. But I'm not sad that they're gone. Like, I love my baby. I love my child. They can always come back if they need to, but mama gotta live too. I'm happy I got the house to myself, because now I can focus on this and focus on that, and I can change their room into a creative room, whatever the case. So I've seen women like that too. And those women, the reason why those women feel that way, it's not because they don't love their kids. It's because they have an identity outside of just being a mom. They have identity outside of those kids. They don't revolve, even though they might have been a great mom, and they're still a great mom. They never revolve their life around their kids. They made sure that they still had their own identity and that they still had their own life. And I feel like that's so important. Whether you're a mom or a dad, or let's say you don't have no kids and you're just married and you're a stay-at-home wife, or whatever the case, your husband pays all the bills. You, even if you take pride in that, because like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Give me 1 second. Even if you take pride in that, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when you revolve your life around that role. Because, like I said, a lot of people feel like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Your husband could decide, he could wake up one day and decide he don't want to be with you no more and divorce you. Or, like I said, even worse, he could end up passing away unexpectedly. So I'm not saying all that to be negative, but I'm saying life can change. Things change, circumstances change. The only thing that will not change is God. And the only thing that can't be changed is what's inside of you. Who you are as a person. That cannot be changed by circumstances. But if you're basing who you are and you're defining yourself off roles and circumstances, it's only a matter of time before you go through identity crisis because, again, those things can change. None of this shit is permanent. None of this shit is permanent. The only thing that's permanent and that's always going to be a part of you is God and yourself. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. If this message blessed you, if it spoke to you in some way, please make sure you like it. Make sure you're subscribed. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.